Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be taking a little bit of a drive around my favourite track that I drive all the time, and just kind of giving you guys my thoughts on iRacing and my kind of iRacing subscription and what's going on with that. I'm going to be talking you through the main things that I like about iRacing, what my main gripes are with iRacing, some of the more common complaints, and basically just my reasoning for not renewing my subscription to iRacing at this time. Now, my last video on iRacing was actually my most viewed video, but to be honest, it was something of a bit of an eye-opener to some of the people that race on iRacing. So this video, I'm going to kind of cover that as well. So it's going to be a bit of a vloggy video. I'm going to do some driving and just some talking and just kind of give you guys my thoughts. So we're going to head out onto track, but before we do that, if you guys are enjoying the videos that I make, if you like the content that I make, then don't forget to hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button, and of course the little bell notification as well, just so you guys know when I release a new video. But without further ado, let's head out on track. So here we are on the Nordschleife with the Toyota Celica GT4. Now, this is one of my favourite cars to drive, just purely because of that. You get wonderful chirpy turbo noises from the car, and at some point I will be doing a full bore lap of Nordschleife with it, but to be honest, today is literally just about relaxing, enjoying myself, and just having a bit of a chat with you guys about my thoughts on iRacing. Now, I'm going to say straight off the bat, I haven't renewed my subscription to iRacing, and I'm going to tell you my reasons why. Now, iRacing obviously is £17 a month, which, in the situation that a lot of people, and myself included, find themselves in at the moment, is quite expensive actually. By the time you've added, it's not just the £17 a month though, it's the buying all the content and cars and tracks. And somebody once said to me that in the first year of iRacing you should expect to pay about £250. Now, that is a monumental amount of money in sim racing terms, especially compared to other titles. And it was kind of between that and a few other things that maybe decide that I didn't really need to be pursuing iRacing at this point. That doesn't mean to say that I'm not going to. At some point I will probably kind of renew my iRacing subscription, and will probably start pursuing it a bit more, but at the moment financially I can't really justify spending that amount of money on a game like iRacing. Now, one of the things that kind of irked me was that we're seeing a lot of subscription events at the moment, it's particularly with iRacing memberships. Now, those memberships are, or those deals are, only for new members, which means that I miss out because I decided I was going to take a month's membership and just see how it went. But what that means is that now I'm not afforded the opportunity to benefit from any of the deals that they're putting on, which, to be honest, that smarts a little bit. Putting money aside though, I think the penalty system is quite unfair. I think that particularly in the rookies you get punished very, very harshly for things that you would expect a rookie to maybe get wrong. Now, as a prime example, right, every time you go off track you're given a ×2 or a ×4 penalty. Now, what that means is that you only get, I think it's 17 times penalties, or 17 penalties, before you're disqualified from the race. Now, if you're accumulating ×4 penalties on all of your excursions off track, you've only got to do 4 or 5 of those and have a little bit of kind of a run-in with somebody else out on track before you're not racing anymore. And at that point, yes, I understand the reasoning for it, and to be honest, it's something that perhaps other games could strike the balance on a little bit. ACC probably having the closest thing to that in their with their rating system. But there are perfectly legitimate kind of times where you'll incur a penalty through no fault of your own, and it will actually have a detriment to your race. So, for example, if you're racing in the rookies, it's MX5, so it's nice close racing, and that's awesome. And I really do enjoy racing in the MX5s. I think they're great little cars to drive, and they're an awesome amount of fun. And we'll get onto that in a little bit as I talk about some of the things I like about iRacing. But I do think that with close racing, and bearing in mind that I'm not inexperienced at this, I've done a decent amount of racing, I know what I'm doing, there is inevitably going to be a little bit of argy-bargy. Now, of course, when you're kind of racing closely and you're racing against people who aren't necessarily as fast as you don't always anticipate, and this is an argument that perhaps needs to be had, you don't always anticipate where they're going to brake, and sometimes you get it wrong. And I will hold my hands up and say that you get it wrong, but I do think that you get punished unduly harshly for touching another car, particularly if that contact doesn't actually affect anything to do with anyone's race. I've had it before where I've kind of, like I say, hold my hands up and misjudged and made a mistake and tapped the back of somebody, not even enough to push them offline. And you're getting a ×2 penalty. Now, you've only got to have like a few of those instances, plus then some issues staying on the track, and you're suddenly into hot water with the iRacing penalty system. Now, one final thing that kind of irked me with driving the rookies, and particularly in the D classes, there feels like there's not a great deal of choice in terms of series to drive. Now, of course, in the rookies, you're in MX5s, that's where everyone goes to learn how to race, and that's fair enough. But when you graduate up to a D license, you're in skip barbers, which you've got to pay for, or you have the kind of weird multi-class race thing that iRacing do. And I think it was at Charlotte Motor Speedway when I was kind of racing in it, and it was just a bit of a mishmash, as though they'd kind of run out of ideas of a semi-slow series of cars to drive, where they could put people who are newly graduated from the rookies into a series where it feels like they think that they wouldn't do too much harm. And actually what they should do is just let them get their hands on some slightly faster machinery, just to create a bit more excitement. It becomes, when you've kind of slogged through the rookies and finally made your way into the D-class license, it does feel a little bit like you're kind of, oh god, I've still got to go through another license category of this before I get to stuff that I actually kind of want to race. Now, I'll hold my hands up and say that I haven't raced the skip barbers, and I've heard very, very good things, but that kind of goes back to my first point about everything. You're having to pay for everything. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't mind paying for good work, but at the same time, not everybody can do that. But I'm going to move on to some stuff that I kind of enjoy about iRacing. I think that the racing in iRacing is some of the best racing I've ever had. Some of the battles that I had in the rookies with other people I don't know, people I don't normally race with, was fantastic. The amount of respect shown between the competitors was amazing, because everybody's taking it seriously. There we go, that was an 8:18. I think I might go for another lap. I've still got a little bit to talk about, so we'll go through the pits and we'll just go straight back out for another one. And yeah, I think the amount of respect that's shown between competitors, particularly in the rookies, if you're a bit higher up the grid, is fantastic. I think people really do take it seriously. I've seen very, very few instances, and I know Dave Cam posted a video of somebody basically taking somebody else out in iRacing, and that is the only instance that I've personally witnessed. And I didn't obviously witness it, but it's the only evidence I've seen of people engaging in that sort of behaviour that we all hate from other racing titles. Now, of course, we all know the pain of ACC public lobbies and the slanging match that can ensue in the chat, but it's the same with Project Cars. When I used to race on Xbox a little bit, you would get maybe 2/3 of the people on the grid wanted to race properly and were actually very good and kind of trying to perfect what they were doing, and then you get 1/3 of people who were there just because they've got nothing else better to do on a Friday night. So fuck it, let's go and crash some cars on Project Cars 2. And that really irks me, and I think... Ooh, hello. Bit sideways. I think iRacing is pretty much immune to that to a certain extent. Yes, of course, people see the red mist, and I think that's more what Dave Cam's video was talking about, is people seeing the red mist and doing silly things, which of course they completely deserve a ban for. But moving on from that, the track and car models actually for iRacing are excellent. Now, they should be. I'm paying for them. You pay a lot of money for content in iRacing, and I would expect nothing less. But every track that I drove in iRacing felt brilliant. It felt absolutely amazing to drive, and the same with the cars. Now, I actually had a very funny conversation with someone once where they kind of talked through Project Cars 2 and basically said that if you look at the stock content in iRacing, or stock content in Assetto Corsa, the amount of stuff that actually works and feels how it should in Project Cars 2 is about the same as the content that that you have in Assetto Corsa. Now, I think that's very true. I completely understand that developers have to pick and choose which elements of the game to spend more time on. Now, every car that I've driven, and I've driven a few, and I actually paid for a few as well, was excellent. It really felt put together. It felt like someone had actually taken a lot of time to kind of think about what that car should feel like, what kind of emotion, because at the end of the day we're doing this because it's fun. That's going to be... Ooh, hello. Just getting a little bit sideways, starting to try and pick the pace up a little bit. And it does feel like iRacing have put a lot of thought into the experience of driving the cars on their platform. Now, that's not to say that the physics is amazing. Actually, I think the physics is one of the weaker that I've driven. I think it kind of gets knocked out of the park by a few other titles, but the physics in iRacing is something that's being constantly worked on. It's something that the guys at iRacing are constantly improving, and they're obviously, with the implementation of new tyre models and stuff like that, they're constantly raising the bar for iRacing, where other games would, particularly Assetto Corsa, feels like it's kind of stood still a little bit. So it's an excellent... Sorry, I'm just trying to work out the entry to that corner. It does kind of feel like they are making steps in the right direction. So having talked about kind of the physics of iRacing and stuff like that, when things do go wrong in iRacing, I don't like the person it turns me into. Because you've spent a lot of money on iRacing, because you've spent a lot of time invested into your license and getting out of the rookies and kind of getting yourself into a position where you're in some faster splits, I felt like it turned me into a bit of a green-eyed monster. Now, the people that know me, who kind of know me and actually speak to me kind of outside of the YouTube bubble, will tell you that I'm probably one of the most chilled people you will ever meet. I don't get angry about stuff. I'm very good at having a fairly level-headed view of things, and I kind of hope that comes across on YouTube a little bit. I mean, obviously when you're behind the wheel there's a certain amount of red mist, and you do occasionally slip into that driving angry. And but with iRacing it seems to happen more and more, and it seems to be not just isolated to me. It seems to be a kind of community thing, in that the people that drive iRacing, if anything happens to mess up their race, anything that could possibly go wrong, if anybody kind of makes a mistake, and people do make mistakes, people kind of do get things wrong, there seems to be this almost innate urge to go and berate that person on voice chat, and I feel like I saw a little bit of that in the comments that were on my last iRacing video, and it's kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, actually. Oh, hello, very sideways. That was fun. I wonder if you can drift this car, actually. I wonder if... I'm not going to try it because, to be honest, I want to get to the end of the lap so that I can wrap up this video, but I do think that there is a certain kind of mentality with iRacing because it is such a competition-driven thing, and of course that is racing. Racing is competition, but it does, I don't want to say turn people into arseholes, because people aren't innately arseholes just off one kind of incident, but it does tend to bring out the kind of what I would call the Facebook kind of behaviour, in that people don't necessarily think about the consequences of what they're saying or doing, particularly with regards to other people, purely because they're behind a screen and you can yell and shout and kind of berate people, and there's no real consequence to that. And it's kind of the same with any kind of social media and stuff like that, but I do think sometimes people forget that there is another human being behind the other side of that screen, and I've heard some horrific things on iRacing. People kind of being told to go and kill themselves, to uninstall the game and never come back. You know what? Honestly, there we go, 8:16, so I gained a couple of seconds. On any race that I drive, yes, of course I want to win and I want to be as fast as I possibly can, but you need to gain some perspective. There needs to be a certain realization that up to a certain point, okay, and I am kind of excluding esports from this, there is nothing on the line apart from bragging rights. Yes, you might lose a few license points, and yes, you might be 5th instead of 3rd, but ultimately everyone's going to go on living their life, and it's not going to affect your life that much. And that's kind of got me into we've kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent here, but it got to me a little bit, like when I was seeing some of the comments coming in on that last video, and I was kind of seeing people being nasty to each other over a game, and that to me is mental. But I really didn't want to end on that really depressing note, but I hope I've kind of used this video to explain some of the reasons why I'm not renewing iRacing, why I'm not racing on iRacing. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I never will, never say never, and to be honest, in reality, the probability is that I will be back in a little while, but at the moment, there are a few things that put me off it, and that's outweighing the enjoyment that I'm getting from it. So, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for kind of sticking with me if you've got this far. But I don't want you to feel that I'm kind of preaching to you. By all means, tell me how stupid I am in the comments. Tell me how wrong I am in the comments. And of course, hit the like button if you think I'm right. Hit the dislike button if you think I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about. But please tell me why I don't know what I'm talking about. So thank you very much. Don't forget to do the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe. Leave me a comment, and of course hit the Amazon links below as well. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that it kind of ended on a bit of a downer there. I really didn't intend to get into a bit of a rant like that, but I feel like it's important to put that out there for people to see. And thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.